What up, what up? Wow. This is Chris Asbrock from the Chris Asbrock Show and Impact Sports Cincinnati. Wow, I cannot believe this. This is once again another episode of Bengals postgame reaction. Wow. Bengals coming off a massive 37-36 victory over the Atlanta Falcons at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. This was a game that I did not expect the Bengals to win. Looking at it right now, the Bengals, the victory, improves the Bengals' record to 3-1 in the season, while Atlanta falls to 1-3 on the season. This was a game I did not see coming. I truly didn't. I figured the Bengals would be 3-1 at this point. However, I figured the one loss would be tonight or today, and then they would have knocked off Carolina. Obviously, that was not the case. Got to give the Bengals a ton of credit for their performance today, offensively. Defensively, not so much. I'm going to get into that here in a little bit. Just an incredible, roller coaster of emotions for this game. The Bengals, really, when you're facing the Atlanta Falcons, you have to expect you're going to be involved in a shootout, and that's pretty much what happened here today. Matt Ryan, he's gonna put up the numbers offensively, and when you look at it, it's, this was something that you figured if the Bengals could survive, at least go 2-2 at the very, very, very least without Vontaze Burfict, and obviously with a couple of the injuries that we've had, you have to be pretty happy about that. And, going into it, again, I didn't think, I didn't feel really comfortable, picking the Bengals to win this game here today. I truly felt that they would. I felt that they would come off, and just be just short, without Billy Price, without Joe Mixon in this game today, without Vontaze Burfict, obviously due to suspension, and obviously missing a couple other guys. You look at the guys who were inactive today. Auden Tate, Joe Mixon, Thomas Rawls, who we signed, who has not played a single down. Billy Price, Cedric Ogbuehi, Mason Schreck, and then Adolphus Washington, who the Bengals signed this past week from the Dallas Cowboys practice squad. Big shout out to Adolphus Washington. Welcome home. He's a local kid, played at Taft High School, was an absolute stud here. Ended up going just up 71 to play for the Ohio State Buckeyes. He was a big, I think personally a big addition. I think he's going to be somebody who's going to be I think he's going to be a big part. He's filling in. He was basically signed for the injury to. I'm having a brain cramp here. A Michigan defensive lineman. I can't. I'm so out of it right now. I'm so pumped. I will get back to you on that one. But he was signed as an injury replacement, so I think he's going to add a lot. Coming up. But when you're missing a good amount of talent like the Bengals had, you kind of, you don't really know exactly which way to go here. And especially against the Atlanta Falcons, who, let's put it this way, the Falcons are one hell of an offensive team. Ryan Glasgow, thank you, Nick. Bam, I knew you'd come back. I knew you'd cover for me here. Well done. Thank you. Nick Cimino saving my life once again here on this one. Tip the cap to you, kid. Well done. But, again, that's one thing Nick and I had talked about. We didn't feel confident. We felt confident last week against the Carolina Panthers. We were completely, we had them overmatched, and we felt, obviously, we saw how that went. It did not go well. The Bengals did not play a good game, did suffer a lot of injuries. This game, we felt it wasn't going to go our way. Hot damn, got to give a ton of credit to the Cincinnati Bengals and their offense, the way they played. They came out and, they played a hell of a game. 99 yards on the ground here today, 337 yards through the air. Andy Dalton, like him or not, played a fantastic football today. He was 29 of 41 for 337 yards. He was sacked 3 times for 29 yards, but he did have 3 touchdowns. And the longest pass was a 39-yard pass. He did have an interception, but he had a total quarterback rating of 109.5. So, Andy Dalton, who, outside of last week's game where he had the 4 picks, I mean, Andy Dalton has played fantastic football so far this season. And, this team has played, just great so far. I mean, offensively, it's just this is the kind of offense that we were expecting, at least me personally, I expected to have all season. I figured they had a ton of weapons, that they were going to be high flying, putting up a lot of points and putting up a lot of yards. And that's what happened. Tyler Boyd, he was targeted 15 times, had 11 receptions for 100 yards even, averaging 9.1 receptions. He did a great job. He was basically undercutting a lot of the routes, and, he was the guy underneath. And, he ended up with 11 receptions for triple digits. AJ Green targeted 8 times. He had 4 receptions for 78 yards. He averaged 19.5 yards, through the air, and he had the touchdown with 7 seconds left, which was incredible. AJ Green, all you can say is wow. I mean, the guy he will continuously be one of the best in the league, and plain and simple, AJ Green is AJ Green. Tyler Eifert, he was targeted 4 times. He had 4 receptions for the 38 yards. He did have the touchdown, and his longest was 15 yards, but he obviously went down with the injury, which I'll touch on here in a minute. Gio was great out of the backfield. A lot of the screen plays, he was targeted 4 times as well. He brought down 4 receptions for 27 yards. John Ross, he was a guy that, I jumped his ass last week for, a couple of the plays that he, but you know what? Guy came back and, he might have blown out a groin, right at the end of the half, but, I got to tip the cap to him. A great job for him. He was 2 of 2, targeted twice. He did have the 2 receptions. Andy Dalton, who stated he had the confidence in John Ross. Obviously, Ocho Cinco talked to the team and basically said, he had the confidence in John Ross, and this was a big game for him. He did only have the 2 receptions, but he did have the 39-yard touchdown reception there where he blew by his guy. He had 52 yards receiving, and this was a huge game for him to bounce back and make a play, especially after the hell he was, put through, and the hell that he must have felt in Carolina last week. So, just a great job, And then Mark Walton, he contributed with a 24-yard play out of the backfield. Alex Erickson, C.J. Uzomah, and Tyler Kroft all had balls thrown to him. Kroft was the interception where, I felt that, he could have made the play on, but, just a great game offensively by the Cincinnati Bengals. On the ground, like I said, they 99 yards through the on the ground through 23 runs. 15 yards for 15 rushes for 69 yards for Gio. He averaged 4.6 yards on the ground. His longest was 14. He did have 2 touchdowns on the ground. So a great game for Gio, who does a great job filling in. He's not a number 1 back personally, in my opinion, but he's a number 1 back for a couple weeks if he has to fill in. And with Joe Mixon coming back next week, great job by Gio. Gio is just he's just been a fantastic asset for this team. You can't help but be excited for a guy like Gio Bernard, and he continues to produce. Andy Dalton, he did have 2 rushes for 13 yards. One of them was an 11-yard rush, which was a big one that he had. Mark Walton, he had 9 yards on the ground. Alex Erickson did have one rush for the 8 yards. So. Just a great game offensively by the Cincinnati Bengals. They continued to to make plays. Special teams was big. Alex Erickson had the 1 punt return for 13 yards, but his biggest contribution was he only did have 2 chances to return a punt or return a kickoff, and he did one of those for 47 yards, which was, fantastic. If you look at Alex Erickson had 2 returns for 82 yards. So, that's a hell of a day for a kick returner without scoring a touchdown. So Alex Erickson did a great job. The Cincinnati Bengals again, they got the job done offensively. On the flip side, the Falcons, Matt Ryan, 29 of 39 for 419 yards. He was sacked 3 times, Bengals were able to get to him, again 3 times, but he did lose 16 yards. He did throw the 3 touchdowns. He didn't have a pick. His longest was 49 yards. That was to Julio Jones. That was right at the end of the game. Julio, you know what you're going to get for, when you're facing the offense, at least the passing attack of the Atlanta Falcons. Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Mohamed Sanu they're going to make your life hell for any secondary, any defense. It's just how it is. Julio Jones was targeted 12 times, brought in 9 of those receptions for 173 yards. He averaged 19.2 through the air, with his longest being a 49-yard play, which, like I said, was right at the end of the game. Mohamed Sanu targeted 9 times. He brought in 6 for 111 yards. He didn't have a touchdown. Calvin Ridley was the guy who, if you think that you're going to hold off Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu for no touchdowns, you expect, a pretty good game, which is obviously what the Bengals did have, coming away with the W. But Calvin Ridley only had 54 yards receiving, but he did have 2 touchdowns. He was dangerous through the air. And Calvin Ridley, this is one thing Nick and I had we did talk about was, how the Bengals were going to approach, facing the passing attack of the of the Falcons, which corner is going to cover, which receiver, and how that was all going to play out. Dre Kirkpatrick, I will continue to say it, he's a serviceable cornerback in the NFL. He does have weaknesses, and you can exploit them, and that's what every single team continues to do, is exploit those weaknesses. It's up to him to, turn it around and work on that and fix that to where it's not that big of a weakness or that big of a liability to a defense. When you look at it here, the Bengals end up with 30 first downs total. I'm looking here at the game book. 30 first downs, 6 on the ground and 20 via the air, and they did have 4 first downs via penalty. So that was huge for the Bengals there. Again, looking at it, the biggest thing I'm going to continue to complain about up and down until this gets fixed is getting off the field on third down. Atlanta was 11 of 15. That's 75% on third down. So again, your defense is out there being stretched thin just simply because they're out there on the field a long time because they cannot get off the field on third down. A couple plays that I can remember was the pass to Paulson, the tight end, on a 3rd and 11, and they just dump it off, and he makes the play. That kind of stuff cannot happen, and it's tough, to really be high on this defense, which a lot of us were, but granted they're playing without. They're playing without Vontaze Burfict, who, like him or not, I know a lot of fans around the league hate him. A lot of fans here in Cincinnati love him. Almost all of us love him here in Cincinnati just because of what he does bring to this defense. It's a different defense when he's on the field. So you can definitely tell there has been a difference, and this defense hasn't been that good. Throughout the first 4 weeks, they've struggled. They just haven't they haven't been able to get off the field on third down, which is absolutely maddening to me. Got to make a play. Got to rise up, make a play, and get off the field on third down. The Bengals did hold the Falcons' offense to the one 4th down conversion where they did not get, and the Bengals went right down the field and scored to really give them the advantage, on the score sheet and and the way the drives were playing out. The Bengals on the flip side were 2 for 2, and that was all on the last drive of the game, to where they were able to get it done. 407 net yards against this Falcons defense, which is not very good. Granted, they were able to get it going. Both teams ran, Bengals ran 67 plays, and the Falcons ran 66 total plays. So they averaged 7.5 yards a play, while the Bengals only averaged 6.1 yards. But still, Bengals finally got back on track on holding the offense, the rushing attack. They only held Atlanta to 92 yards on the ground. So that's a huge, turnaround from getting completely torched last week by Carolina. They were able to, hold Atlanta, relatively at bay, for the, at least in the second half. The first half, you could tell, like Nick and I, were talking about, you could definitely tell that the Falcons had, read the scouting report, and they watched what Carolina did to us, because they were really going with Tevin Coleman to, really attack the Bengals defense on the ground, and they did a good job of that. But overall, 99 yards on the ground for the Bengals compared to 92 for the Falcons. Bengals averaged 4.3, and then, Atlanta averaged 3.8. So, again, it was a big game for the Bengals. Penalty-wise, they were only penalized 6 times it was only 55 yards. So, again, able to, even though you weren't getting off the field on third downs, you weren't giving up a lot of first downs via penalty. So, and that right there can really be demoralizing, giving up a first down, when you're flagged. They only gave up the 1. So that's a huge turnaround there for the Bengals, even though they've got to shore up the third down defense. Obviously 73% is not gonna get it done. But overall, the Falcons were penalized 10 times for 95 yards. So that right there is huge. The Bengals had, the 5 touchdowns, 2 on the ground and 3 through the air, while, again, it was 1 on the ground for the Falcons and 3 through the air with Matt Ryan. But, red zone efficiency, Bengals 4 or 5, they were able to get it done in a couple of these big plays here, which is huge. When the time of possession, when that stat is relatively even, the Bengals had, just over half an hour, while, Atlanta had just under half an hour. So it was 30 minutes and 38 seconds compared to 29 minutes and 22 seconds. It comes down to basically how your drives play out. And if you look at here for the Bengals, they were, 4 for 4 on the first, their first 4 drives of the half. And then the first drive of the second half is where I really kind of felt that the tide was starting to turn. And that was the horrific injury to Tyler Eifert and that ankle. My heart goes out to him. Tyler Eifert, obviously he's been injured a lot here in Cincinnati. Just a bad play. And then it definitely snowballed after that. Once Eifert went down, like I said, it seemed to go south, because in the next play, Andy Dalton was sacked, and then you had the block punt. But Bengals did a hell of a job defensively and rose up and only held Atlanta to 3 points. If Atlanta gets a touchdown here, after on that play or after that play, I think it's a whole different ballgame. I think it's a big loss for the Cincinnati Bengals, and they dropped to 2-2. Instead, they get in position. You get a little bit of hype, and then you continue to roll with that. So after the Bengals in the third quarter had no drives that resulted in points, which is obviously not what you want. So in your first 4 drives of the second half, you only get 3 points, compared to the Falcons, who get looks like 13 points in the off of drives in the second half on their 4 drives of the second half. They were able to get at least 13 points there. The Bengals, like I said, the block punt, and then it ends on downs. Then they were forced to punt, and then they threw the interception. So after the third quarter, things aren't looking real positive for the Cincinnati Bengals here, when it's just kind of, okay, well, we had a good run. How are we going to be able to turn it around? Well, you get a field goal. You bring it within, 4? You bring it within 4 points. And then right after that, you go for it, and, you get that touchdown on that 16-play drive that goes 85 yards and takes up 4 minutes and 8 seconds. So the Bengals, their drives in the first half, 3 minutes and 4 seconds, 3 minutes and 29 seconds. That was their 2 touchdown drives in the first quarter. The second quarter, 2 minutes and 52 seconds, and then 2 minutes and 11 seconds the Bengals scored touchdown drives on in that second quarter. And then after that, they didn't kill any time off the clock until it was the fourth quarter. They had the one drive, like I had stated, the first drive, which went 1 minute and 52. Then 3 minutes and 42 seconds after, they gave up a field goal to start off that half. But then, you're forced to punt after a 3-minute and 14-second drive. But then to start the fourth quarter, the Bengals go 6 minutes and 6 seconds and then get a field goal. That's an 11-play, 39-yard drive. Granted, like I said, you're not getting a lot of yards, but you're killing time off the clock, and then you get points that, your drive ends in points, which is obviously what any drive that you want has to end in a kickoff. Obviously, you do not want it to end in a turnover. Bengals were able to have it end in a kickoff with the field goal. Then the Bengals, right after that, they go the 16-play, 85-yard drive after, that was just a huge drive for the Cincinnati Bengals to get everything right back into it. And, then you're really forced to hold Atlanta to drive I don't know how 77 yards to get the pay dirt to win the game. You're forcing them to really drive 77 yards in only 7 seconds, because they would not have been able to kick a field goal to beat the Bengals there in this one. So with that being the case, the Bengals were able to get it done. They scored points on 6 of their 9 drives, which is that's, you can't ask for much more than that from the from your offense, compared to you're giving up. The Bengals were they defensively they faced looks like 10 drives, and out of those 10 drives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those drives were ended in points for the Falcons. Granted, the Bengals did a good job of putting up 7 points while they were giving up 3. So you're going to win a lot of games when that ratio is in favor of your team. So again, overall, the Cincinnati Bengals, they did a great job of making plays when it counted. And Nick Vigil, defensively, once again, he's one of the best tacklers on this team. Nick Vigil with 8 tackles, Jesse Bates with 7, Preston Brown with 4, and Darquez Denard with 5. They were the leaders on defense for the Cincinnati Bengals, and Gino, he did have 5, but he ended up with a big sack on Matt Ryan as well. This team, again, continues to make plays, and granted, they do get torched a little bit defensively. That's going to change, obviously, this week with Vontaze Burfict coming back. So that will be another, massive addition for the Cincinnati Bengals when they, when they bring back their basically defensive captain here and Vontaze Burfict. So just a massive game here for the Bengals. You can't help but I'd be pretty jacked up for this team coming away with a victory like that, especially in a game to where starting off the game, like I said, you're when you're winning at the half, when it's 28-24 at the half, you're thinking, okay, we might have this, and then you see the injury to Tyler Eifert, and then it's kind of like, well, how are we going to pull this off? And then Atlanta takes the lead, and then again that roller coaster of emotions, it made it tough. But the Bengals, they were able to stay strong, and got to give credit to this team. They don't give up. They really don't. This is a different team than in years past. It definitely seems that way. This team does not give up. They fight until the end, and I got to give them a hell of a lot of credit, because they're 3-1 here, when, like I said, personally, I felt that they were going to be 3-1 at this point anyway. I didn't foresee them winning this game though. But just a great job, Marvin Lewis and his staff, for getting the job done here, starting with 3-1 once again. Andy Dalton again continues to show why I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I'm not saying he's elite, and I'm not saying he's average. I think he's just above average. He's definitely above average, and he's just below elite, in my personal opinion. So you can call me an idiot. I don't care. I just think, the guy gets the job done, and that's what he did once again today. But again, hell of a job of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now they come back to face a 3-1 Dolphins team who I think are The Dolphins, I don't think, are as good as their record shows. And I think the Bengals are going to come out and play very well this coming Sunday. So, just again, a huge victory for the Cincinnati Bengals. They improved to 3-1 in the season. So, again, that was a lot of fun. Again, that roller coaster of emotions was definitely interesting, but it definitely worked out in the end. Wow, it was a lot of fun. So, again, thank you guys so much for checking me out. Make sure you pass out the information about this show here to everyone. I would love to have more viewers. I'd love to have more interaction. As always, thank you guys so much for your support. Make sure you check me out on Twitter at I am Chris Asbrock. Check out the website at feeltheimpactsports.com, and you can also check out my podcast at Anchor FM. What is it? Anchor.com/FM. It's Chris Asbrock. Just make sure you check out Anchor and then just type in my name and you'll see my show. I try to put a lot of stuff out there. I'll definitely be touching on some FC Cincinnati coming up here, relatively soon, probably tomorrow. But overall, thank you guys as always for your support. And let's get another victory here to move to 4-1 on the season next week. Thank you guys as always, and have yourselves a fantastic rest of your Sunday. Take care. Bye.